So our submission talks about that there is a lot you can do during, and is that our strength? Probably not, but either side of an event like this is critical. And so the planning and design of how we deal with bushfire in our cities and our peri-urban areas and our rural areas, as well as what happens after, are very much things that we can influence, shape and impact. And so our thrust is that landscape architecture, not being overt about it, but understanding how our landscapes work, how they function, how they react to natural disasters and their resilience or not, is critical. And understanding that is the first part. And so our thrust is that there are so many things that we can learn from the past, but there are things we can learn further in the past from the traditional land management practices of Aboriginal Australians, the first Australians. And that doesn't get a lot of airtime. It's got a little bit since all this happened. And so again, that's a big thrust. Things like integrating our open spaces in our cities and how they can help us manage the event, but also pre and after. Better coordination, peri-urban or edge condition, as we can see now, is really important. And the shape of Australia's mostly sprawling cities is not helping. And so these are the things we need to think about and look at, but also understand the behaviour of fire. I mean, we've got areas of our major capital cities burning that have never burnt, and they're not even in areas that you'd think are even capable of burning from ember attack. So wind, weather, ambient humidity, these are all things that factor into ignition. Got a couple of objectives here that I think landscape architecture as a profession, by and large, can be the great facilitator. We understand natural systems. We also understand cities. We increasingly understand things like green infrastructure and how these things come together. And we're also good at having conversations with our communities. I guess the Commission is looking at traditional land and fire management practices. And I think that's the first time in my memory that we've put such a spotlight on that. So the scale of effort required, though, will turn a lot of the authorities on their heads, because it changes the way you manage bushfire. And I guess there's quite a broad and I think unresolved social debate about how we do this, and the many different ways of reconciling the competing cultural, I guess, the different parts of the Aboriginal nations around Australia, let alone just within, say, the South Australian context or the New South Wales context, but also how we share knowledge and the repatriations for that. Yeah. So I guess just acknowledging it is one thing, but again, that there's more than one way to deal with this, and so that is something I hope is respectfully addressed, incorporated, and we learn more. Effectively, it's understanding topography, aspect, orientation, season, time of year, the different types of species and outcomes that are sought. So for instance, often the way they would burn some areas would be to chase out the smaller animals or the younger animals so that they could escape, because it's a slow, cool outward burn. But they could trap one or two. They only needed to get what they need. They didn't just wholesale torch an area of land. But also they understood the different time of year on which grasses were coming up, which fruits were fruiting. And because the season was, the summer season effectively, they could plan for that. And they didn't need to do the same area every year, but they certainly didn't wait 50 years between burns. So again, they had an acute understanding of their own landscape and they worked with it. But they also saw its flaws and its I guess its weak points to capitalise on that for food and shelter. The wind for us is a better understanding of the importance of our natural systems in our cities.